Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Office of Transport Safety Investigations webinar. My name's Susan Everingham. I'm the Director of Safety Promotion with OTSI. Before we kick off, I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we meet this morning, especially elders past and present. I recognise and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of New South Wales. I'd also like to acknowledge that this is NAIDOC Week, a celebration of the culture, history and achievements of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. In this morning's webinar, we have two presenters, Dr. Natalie Pelham and Daniel Marshall. Natalie is a senior leader with more than 20 years' experience in the public sector, leading significant policy, strategy and reform at the state and national levels. She was appointed Chief Investigator and Chief Executive Officer of OTSI in January 2021. Daniel Marshall has 15 years' experience in the rail industry. Daniel is a Senior Transport Safety Investigator at OTSI, and he has investigated derailments, safe working incidents, fires and explosions, and rolling stock irregularities. With our presentation this morning, we will have that first, and then following the presentation, there's an opportunity for Q&As. If you'd like to submit a question for us to address after the presentation, you can either scan our QR code or go to www.slido.com and enter the code 280511. The presentation this morning will talk a little bit about OTSI's functions and role. Then the focus will be on our investigation into the Nana Glen derailment. So we'll be looking at what happened, our investigation findings, and then implications for the rail sector. Then, as I said, we'll have an opportunity for you to ask and have questions answered, and then just give you some information about engaging with OTSI. So, over to you, Natalie.
Thank you very much, Susan, and I'd like to also acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land on which we gather here today and pay my respects to elders past and present and emerging. This is a fabulous opportunity for us to share with you our latest report that we've produced and published, the derailment of freight train 4B-M4 at Nana Glen on the 25th of February 2021. So welcome. Really appreciate you joining us today. This is the first of our OTSI webinars. So we'll be obviously a few hiccups, no doubt. If you can bear with us, we'll get through all the information and hopefully this will be a great opportunity for you to learn more about this investigation, our findings, and the sort of ways that we can improve safety moving forward. Just a point of note, I've got a bit of a cold, so I've got a bit of a rough voice, but I will try my best to keep it as smooth as possible and hopefully spend most of the time listening and talking with Daniel. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is really tell you a little bit about OTSI, just for those of you who may not be so familiar with us. So our primary purpose is to improve safety. And the way that we do that is by investigating incidents and accidents across the transport system and by really getting to the heart of why did these occurrences take place. What can we do to improve the management of safety, improve our risk controls going forward, or improve the responses to the way in which we deal with these occurrences once they've actually happened? We obviously want to share those lessons that we find out from our investigations, and this webinar series is the way that we're going to try and do that. But of course, we publish our reports, we publish summaries of our reports, and you can get onto our website and have a look at a range of different things. Ultimately, for us, though, there's no point in doing these investigations if we don't share those lessons with others. So we really want to make sure that the way in which we do that engages you and gives you the information that you need. So, of course, we're happy for any feedback that you might have about this webinar or other things that we try and do in the way of sharing information. So OTSI is a statutory authority, and the position I hold as Chief Investigator is also a statutory position. What does that mean? That means for us we have a level of independence from the Minister. So I can make decisions around what we investigate, why we investigate and how we investigate them. And that's really important not only for the minister in terms of protecting the minister, but also important for you and others who can understand that we're not in it for any political gain or other sorts of things. We just want to get to the heart of why things didn't go the way we would want them to and what we can do to change that moving forward. We do a range of different activities as part of our investigation role, which I'll talk about very briefly. So we do undertake these no-blame investigations across the three modes that you can see on the screen. We also analyse data research to try and improve safety. We manage a confidential safety information reporting scheme. And that's important because it gives transport employees an opportunity to let us know about issues they think perhaps haven't been addressed in the way that they think they should have. We can investigate those, have a look at them, keep it all confidential, but try and work with operators to see if there is something that needs to be done to improve safety. We also, as I've mentioned a couple of times now, we want to engage with stakeholders and share whatever information we've got to improve safety. And that's our primary reason for being. We do operate in a pretty complex environment, as this slide shows. You can see that there are both public services and there are also commercial services, and we go across the range of them. There are the buses, the ferries, the trains, and obviously light rail and metro. And you can see there are a number of different regulators that operate in that space that are also looking at safety and compliance. And the investigations sit across all of those and look at, from an independent point of view, how do we examine sort of safety issues? We're not the only independent investigator. Obviously, we work very closely, particularly in rail, with the Australian Transport Safety Bureau. And we also work with Transport Safety in Victoria, another agency similar to OTSI and similar to the ATSB. What is a no-blame investigation? I mean, in some senses, it could be just slightly poorly named, but essentially from our point of view, what we're trying to do is focus on that why and making recommendations, prevent things from happening again, or to improve safety. We look at identifying contributing factors, so looking at how risk was managed, how the identification assessment processes, if they're effective. We're also looking around whether or not there's human error and could systems better address that. And where there are unreliable or perhaps even missing safety controls. So those are the things that we're trying to examine. The no blame part is really around our information is not really used, cannot be used to blame individuals. And we certainly don't look at individuals as part of our investigation from the point of view of finding fault. But that doesn't mean to say we don't, in our reports, clearly indicate where things may have gone wrong or why those things went wrong in that way, and the actions that individuals or organisations may have taken or may not have taken in that. But it means that, you know, there's no legal ramifications from our investigations from that point of view. The evidence that we collect is protected. It can't be used in civil or criminal proceedings. And also in engaging with those directly involved parties, we give people an opportunity to comment on our reports, and we do very thorough peer reviews so that when it's tabled in Parliament, people can be confident of the quality of the report and the substance of the information within it. So that's really gives you a bit of an overview of a no-blame investigation. This slide tries to give you a bit of a sense of an investigative analysis model. So what do we do in how we structure an investigation? And you may have seen this before. We use this, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau uses it, and the Chief Investigator in Victoria also uses it. There are other methods, but this is one that we all find reasonably helpful to the way in which we investigate. So what does it mean? If you look at it from the bottom and working up, we start with the occurrence. Everybody wants to know what happened. And then once we can work out what happened, we also want to look at the occurrence events. So those things that led up to the occurrence that might have increased risk or contributed to the event occurring, and what happened sort of immediately post and how it was responded to. So that's the what and the how that we're interested in. We're also wanting to understand any individual actions. So perhaps the safety critical staff who were on site, what did they do? How did it kind of contribute to the occurrence event? And we're also interested in the local conditions, you know, the weather, various equipment and how it was working. All of that really gives us a really solid understanding of what happened, how it happened, and to some extent why it happened. And if we find that having done what's called the below the line, you can see that dotted line there on the screen, If we can answer the whys just based on all of that information, then from our point of view, we don't take the investigation further and we can publish it based on that. And really from that point of view, it would indicate that it's not a system-wide issue. It could potentially be I don't know if one-off is quite the right word, but that's sort of the implication. Once, however, we start looking at the risk controls and whether or not there were sort of some limits in the risk controls in place to either prevent it or recover from some of the issues that we looked at below the line, once we get to that point, we're starting to look at a more systems-wide issue. If there's something wrong with the risk controls, then obviously this event could happen again. So then we start focusing our attention on those risk controls and understanding why those risk controls didn't really do what we thought they were going to do. And that's a real opportunity for us to understand safety issues, the factors that really contribute risk and the factors that could lead to this happening again. Similarly, if we start to look at the organisation and we find that the way in which the organisation develops and manages and monitors its risk controls, if there's some problems there, again, that starts to point to a system-wide issue. And then more things might need to be done to address the organisational capability in terms of understanding and managing its risk. And that's really what people talk about doing an above-the-line investigation. And often these are referred to as systemic investigations. And so incidents can result in systemic investigations. The challenge for us as investigators is getting enough evidence to support the above-the-line conclusions that risk controls or the organisation itself might need some improving in their capability to actually manage the risk that they face safely. Daniel's going to talk you through the Nana Glen investigation using this model. So you'll get a first-hand view, particularly looking at the safety factors analysis of how we use this method and how it helps us to understand, in this particular incident, why that derailment took place and what we can do to try and prevent that from happening in the future. So I'd just like to hand over to Daniel at this point and get him to talk us through the more details of the Nana Glen investigation report. Daniel, over to you.
Thank you, Nellie. So just wanted to talk through the investigation itself. And for those that haven't read the report, we'll give you a rundown of the investigation, the analysis process we went through, some of the sort of safety issues that were identified, the safety action, and then go from there. Next slide. So the investigation or the incident itself, there was a derailment of freight train 4MB4 near Nana Glen. If you look on the right-hand side, you can see the image of the derailment where one of the locomotives has rolled on its side and there's a number of wagons that have been piled up. So prior to the derailment itself, there was an extreme weather event along the mid-north coast of New South Wales. So on the night of 25th of February 2021, there was a substantial amount of rainfall. Looking at the 6